Okay, let's talk about the 5 reasons why God would order the utter destruction of certain people groups in the Old Testament. Okay. Now, some people would often use this as an argument against the God of the Bible. And I get that. Sometimes it's really hard to understand, but you really need to dive in. You really need to go beyond, you know, you need to be careful when you read the text. You have to go into the context. You need to understand the culture. You need to understand the theme. And today we're going to jump into these 5 reasons why I think God would order the utter destruction of these people groups. Okay, first one is the judgment of sin. And I'm not just talking about the usual sense of the word sinning or sin. I'm talking about extreme wickedness that is already beyond repair. Take, for example, Noah. In Genesis chapter 6, verse 5, the Lord saw that the wickedness of humankind had become great on the earth. Every inclination of the thoughts of their minds was only evil all the time. In Sodom and Gomorrah, you're going to find out that in Genesis chapter 18, Abraham even tried to bargain with God. He asked God, if there were 50 who were righteous in Sodom and Gomorrah or in this city, will you wipe out the entire city? God told him, no. For the sake of the 50, I'm going to spare the whole place. And then there was even a follow-up question. What about 45? What about 30, 20, or 10? At the end of the day, at the end of the conversation, Abraham finally got the point. God was not going to destroy the city if he finds any righteous people. In fact, if you go to Genesis chapter 19, you're going to find out that the judgment didn't come until Lot and his family were taken out. Okay. Jude and Peter provided us the reason why God judged these people because they were uncontrollable in their desires. They reached a point where, I mean, they already reached the point of no return. Peter talked about this, talked about their debauched lifestyle in Second Peter chapter 2, verse 7 to 11. They were stubborn and unrepentant. Jude talked about them, that they were worse than animals. Okay. In Paul even talks about unrepentant sinners who not only practice sins, but even condone such practice. Let me read to you Romans chapter 1, verse 32. It says here, although they fully know God's righteous decree, they know what is right and what is wrong. Okay. So even when they understand that God hates this, they continue to do it. And not only that, it says here, they not only do them, but also approve of those who practice them. So it's not just simply sinning or having a problem of sin, but they keep doing it and they approve and they even promote this kind of lifestyle. What about the Canaanites? If you look at the Canaanites, they were actually given 400 plus years. If you read Genesis chapter 15 to 16, God talking to Abraham, it says that in the 4th generation, your descendants will return here for the sin of the Amorites. Amorites is synonymous to Canaanites, has not yet reached its limits. So it means to say they haven't reached the point of no return. Okay, so God is not giving the land to Abraham yet. Okay, you're going to find out that the judgment didn't come until the time of Joshua, which was centuries later. Okay. The reason why they were driven out was because of their sin. It got to a point where it got so bad that they were sacrificing their children to the gods that they worship, such as Molech. Okay. So you can read about that in Leviticus chapter 18 and Leviticus chapter 20. Okay? If there was any chance that these people would repent, God would have done everything in his power to save them. Just look at Nineveh. Look at what God told Jonah. Jonah wanted God to judge Nineveh, but look at what God told him. Let's go to Jonah chapter 4, verse 10 to 11. Let's read it. You were upset. The Lord said to Jonah, you were upset about this little plant, something for which you did not work, nor did you do anything to make it grow. It grew overnight and died the next day. Should I not be more concerned about Nineveh, this enormous city? There are more than 120,000 people in it who do not know right from wrong, as well as many animals. Again, if there was any other way, God would have taken it just to save these sinful people. Just take a look at Rahab and the Gibeonites. They were originally Canaanites. Rahab was from the city of Jericho. But when they willingly give their allegiance to Yahweh and his people, God spared them. God didn't include them in his judgment. Let's move to the second reason. The second reason is about cosmic geography. We talk about this in the divine counsel of God, Deuteronomy chapter 32, verse 8. When the Most High God gave the nations their inheritance, when he divided up humankind, he set the boundaries or territories of the people according to the number of the heavenly assembly, or some of your translations would say, sons of God. For the Lord's allotment is his people. Jacob is his special possession. Okay, the point here is that God disinherited the people in Genesis 11 in the Tower of Babel incident. He assigned them to different sons of God because they were trying to build a tower or a place for the gods to come and be with them instead of worshiping Yahweh, the true God. So God gave them or disinherited them and allowed them, you want gods, I'm going to give you to the gods. Okay. But his territory, his special place, is what we would refer to as the land of Canaan. This was Yahweh's property. This is where he was going to raise this people group in order to bring about the promised Messiah, in order to redeem humankind. Okay? You want false gods? Great. I'm going to give them to you. Okay? But this is my portion. This is where I will start my own people. Okay? And no one should mess around. Okay? So, yes, Yahweh owns the entire world, but this is his special real estate, the land of Canaan. It was his home, it was his household. Okay? And he's not going to let his children be destroyed by these people who are going to influence them and eventually lead them astray and cause Yahweh to judge them, just as Yahweh judged these Canaanites. Okay. In addition to that, verse which is the reason number 3, is that there were giants. Yes, you heard me right, and it doesn't matter whether you believe that these are actual giants, but this is the context of the biblical narrative. This is what the biblical authors were trying to communicate to the readers. Along with the wicked men or wickedness of men, there's also a problem of giants. There were giants in those days, as mentioned in Genesis 6. Okay, there were giants in those days and after that. That's why you see Nephilim. We all know that Nephilim were offsprings of the Watchers and human women. The book of Enoch talks about this. And if you read the book of Enoch, you're going to find out that the reason why people became exceedingly wicked was because of the Watchers. These Watchers taught humans. Okay? Later on, these demonic giant creatures will once again show up in the land of Canaan, and they're going to be called Anakims. Okay, the 12 spies that was sent by Moses in Numbers chapter 13, verse 33, actually reported that they were like grasshoppers. I mean, the Israelites, they were like grasshoppers. If you compare it to the inhabitants of Canaan, they were so big, in short. Deuteronomy chapter 2 talks about them. They were called the Raphaims. Sometimes they were also called the Zamzumims or the Emims. Og, the king of Bashan, was considered to be a race, considered to be part of that race of giants. Goliath was an Anakim. In First Chronicles chapter 20, you're going to notice that there were 4 giants mentioned there. Okay? And one of them even had 6 fingers on both hands and feet. Okay? So they somehow live with the inhabitants of Canaan. Okay? And eventually, some of them went to Philistines. These guys were not going to sit around and let the people or the children of Yahweh come into the land of Canaan without a fight. They will kill the Israelites. And the Israelites have no choice but to fight and destroy them completely before they can safely dwell in the land. Okay. All the places where you find the command to completely annihilate these people, including male, female, and children, are where these giant races were located, the hill countries. Okay. It is not kill everyone, but only in the places where the Anakim were found. That is why the success indicator, as summarized by Joshua, is that there is no more Anakim left. And you can read about that in Joshua chapter 11, verse 21 to 23. Okay. And if you want a full presentation, I would suggest you watch this video by Dr. Michael Heiser. Okay. It's not kill everyone. Okay. It's not kill all the Canaanites. God was happy to drive them out. Okay. And in some cases, they even commingled with the Israelites commingled with the Canaanites. Even when you go to the New Testament in Matthew chapter 15, verse 21, you're going to find out that Jesus had an encounter with this Canaanite woman. Okay. The fourth reason is live or be killed. Okay. It's not like they have a UN resolution that's, concerning the treatment of POWs. Nobody was going to prevent the enemies of Israel to come and destroy them. Take, for example, the Amalekites who tried to ambush the Israelites when they got out of Egypt. The Moabites or the Edomites who had such hatred towards Israel. They were not thinking about the women or the children. They were not thinking about their welfare. They do not have that kind of cultural sensitivity like we have today. The enemies of Israel do not care. This was the culture during that time. Today, some terror organizations would train children and women to kill. They would use women and children as suicide bombers. All you need to do is just look them up, Google it. There's plenty of stories concerning, kids and women used as suicide bombers. Okay. Number 5, to protect the seed of the woman, the line of the Messiah. If you haven't noticed it, the enemy or Satan was always hostile towards men. That is why he deceived Adam and Eve and caused the fall of man. And because of that, God promised that he was going to raise up the seed of the woman in Genesis 3, the Messiah who was going to crush the head of the serpent. Okay? And ever since that time, the enemy was always working towards the destruction of the seed of the woman or the messianic line, even as early as the time of Cain and Abel, or the time of Moses when Pharaoh ordered the killing of all the babies. You come to the time of Jesus, Herod ordered the murder of all the babies as well. So the seed of the woman had to be protected at all costs so that the Messiah can be brought forth. Because without the Messiah, okay, we're all gonna die in our sins. Okay, there's a reason why the genealogies were written in the Bible. It was not to bore us to death, it was to record the faithfulness of God so that the people can keep track of the seed of the woman. Okay, so with that, I urge you, please read the text carefully, understand the background. God does not, simply issue a command for no reason at all. Okay? If there is a way to somehow save them, to somehow not judge them, God would do so. Okay? So with that, God bless, and I'll see you in the next video.